I've wished for a Legend of Zelda Wind Waker Switch port for years now. Well, pretty much me and every other Zelda fan. In a perfect world, it'd be ported straight from the Wii U HD remaster, alongside Majora's Mask, but I'm not too picky. I just want to be able to play the best Zelda games wherever I go on Nintendo's latest and finest hardware. That is, at least until the Switch 2 comes out. It always amazes me that Nintendo hasn't ported its most beloved games to its best-selling console. Porting the likes of Pokemon Emerald and Majora's Mask to the Switch would be a license to print money on demand. I bought the Virtual Console versions of Pokemon Red, Yellow, and Silver, despite owning the original cartridges and devices, just for the sake of convenience. Both Wind Waker and Majora's Mask were ported to the Wii U, Wind Waker through an HD update and Majora's Mask via the Virtual Console. Majora's Mask was also remade along with Ocarina of Time for the 3DS. You'd think this would make them even easier to move them over to the Switch, as the hard work's already been done. The groundwork's laid and all that needs to be done are a few tweaks, and you've got some of the finest Zelda games on one of the finest consoles. I'm sure it's a little more difficult than that, but it's gotta be easier than porting it straight from the N64 or the GameCube, right? This seems like it'd be the perfect year for a release like this too, with reported delays to the Nintendo Switch 2, or whatever it's gonna be called. It seems like multiple big games, like the Pokemon Legends game, has been pushed back to launch alongside the new console. This leaves a huge hole in 2024 that Nintendo could fill with something like this. Filling it with ports of classic games would be a cheap, easy way to make big bucks with seemingly little effort, while also appeasing fans and keeping them glued to your hardware in the latter days of its life cycle. However, the more time passes without these ports, the less I want them. Ocarina of Time was ported to the Switch, and that wasn't great. It felt rushed, textures were off, and that majorly impacted the mood of the game. Infamously, the fog and water didn't render correctly, which made important areas just not look right. Even worse though was the fact that it was only available via emulation through the Nintendo Switch Online service. I'm not the biggest fan of Nintendo Switch Online. I don't like having to pay an annual subscription fee in order to battle Pokemon Online or whatever. The classic games available as part of the subscription are a bonus, to be sure, but they're not worth paying for alone, especially when new ones are added on such a sporadic basis. Honestly, the biggest thing I hate about Nintendo Switch Online is just the fact that it's another subscription service. I'd way rather pay more money for proper ports of Pokemon Stadium, Super Mario World, and Ocarina of Time and actually own them, than have to pay every year for the privilege of using them occasionally. If ports of Majora's Mask and Wind Waker ever did materialize, I'd bet my non-existent savings account on them coming to Nintendo Switch Online rather than as a purchasable standalone game, and I just can't be bothered with that. Aside from the potentially problematic elements of emulation like those that plagued Ocarina of Time to begin with, I want to own my games. Heck, I already own them on one console, but it's a pain to get the GameCube to work on modern TVs, plus the ever-enticing allure of being able to play them on the go. I'd love to own them on the Switch, but properly. It's not like I've got something against all streaming services. Heck, I'm currently using Game Pass to play Lies of P for the first time, and I'm loving it. But it shouldn't be the only way to play a classic game on modern consoles. This is a conversation about game preservation. This is about making classic games accessible to all players. This is about giving the best Zelda games the respect they deserve. This is a problem that plagues PlayStation as well, with the PS Plus subscription model being whatever it is, and not offering enough of those classic games to keep people coming back. This is something we as a community kind of need to think about as we move forward with a lot of these things. Because as time goes on and these retro games get harder and harder to find, those prices just keep going up. And for a lot of them, they remain locked on a console that's either difficult to play or difficult to hook up. We're at a point now in gaming where a lot of these things do need to be preserved. We value video games as an artistic medium, and as such, a lot of these old or classic or retro or whatever you want to call them games deserve to be playable in some form. I just hope that when and if these games do get ports to modern hardware, they don't put it behind a paywall on a subscription service, or worse, put it on a physical cartridge that they only sell for a limited amount of time like the Super Mario 3D All-Stars was. Please, Nintendo, just let me play Wind Waker on the go,